What happens when a successful black billionaire walks into a luxury store, only to be humiliated by racist security and staff? Meet Natalie Cole, a self-made business mogul with global influence, but when she enters a high-end boutique, she's met with suspicion instead of service, wrongfully accused, embarrassed in front of customers, and treated like a criminal until she reveals exactly who she is. But Natalie isn't just looking for revenge. She's about to make them regret ever underestimating her, in a way they never saw coming. Stick around, because this is the story of how one woman turned humiliation into power and made real change happen. Before we continue, make sure to like the video and subscribe the channel so the community can grow, and we can bring you more stories like this. Now, let's get into it. It was supposed to be a simple afternoon, a quick stop at the high-end luxury boutique on Madison Avenue. Nothing unusual for someone like Natalie Cole. At 39, Natalie was the CEO of VC Holdings, a global investment firm with stakes in tech, fashion, and real estate. A self-made billionaire, she had graced the covers of Forbes, been a keynote speaker at economic summits, and dined with presidents. But today, in a crisp white jumpsuit and understated jewelry, she wasn't Natalie Cole, the empire builder. She was just a woman looking to buy a watch. The boutique was quiet, the air filled with the scent of polished leather and expensive cologne. A sales associate, a young blonde woman with an air of practiced politeness, barely spared Natalie a glance. That was the first red flag. Natalie moved to the display case, eyes scanning the latest collection. A sleek, diamond-encrusted timepiece caught her attention. She was about to call for assistance when she felt it. The weight of a stare pressing against her. A security guard, middle-aged, stocky, uniform pristine. He wasn't just watching. He was assessing, as if she were a potential problem. Natalie ignored him. She had been in this position before. Wealth did not erase the color of her skin, but years of success had taught her patience. She signaled the associate. "I'd like to see this one, please." The woman hesitated. "That's a very expensive piece." Natalie met her gaze evenly. "I assumed so." "Perhaps something in a lower range?" A dry chuckle escaped Natalie's lips. "I didn't ask for a lower range." The associate's expression tightened, but she unlocked the case and placed the watch on a velvet mat. Natalie reached for it, only for the woman's hand to hover, hesitant. The security guard stepped closer. "Is there a problem?" Natalie asked, her tone neutral. "We just need to ensure serious buyers handle our merchandise," the associate said. Natalie's patience thinned. "And what, exactly, makes you think I'm not a serious buyer?" Before the woman could answer, the guard's radio crackled. "Possible shoplifting suspect. Description matches." Natalie stiffened. The guard's eyes flicked to her. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to see some ID." A slow, disbelieving exhale left her lips. "Excuse me?" The tension in the store spiked. Customers turned. Some whispered. Others pretended not to see. The associate took a step back as if Natalie had suddenly become dangerous. The guard squared his shoulders. "We've had an incident. You match the description of a suspect." Natalie's heartbeat drummed, not with fear, but with a simmering, ice-cold fury. "And what exactly is that description?" The guard hesitated. Black female, mid-30s, expensive clothing. Silence blanketed the store. Natalie let the absurdity settle in before she spoke, voice razor-sharp. "That's your description? Do you realize how vague and racist that sounds?" The guard's grip tightened on his belt. "I'm just following protocol, ma'am. I need to check your bag." The humiliation burned. Natalie inhaled, forcing composure. She could destroy them all with a single phone call, but not yet. She folded her arms. "Call your manager. Now." The air in the boutique was suffocating now, thick with the weight of unspoken biases. Natalie's jaw tightened, her pulse steady, controlled. She had fought battles far greater than this. Hostile boardrooms, billion-dollar negotiations, men who tried to silence her. This question, Mark. This was insulting, but it was not new. The guard didn't move. The sales associate shifted awkwardly, eyes darting between Natalie and the growing audience of curious shoppers. "Ma'am," the guard said again, voice hardening, "I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." Natalie didn't flinch. "You think I'm going to just stand here and be treated like a criminal? You fit the description." She let out a humorless laugh. "And that description is black woman in an expensive store? Do you hear yourself?" A tense silence followed. The sales associate took another cautious step back, as though afraid proximity to Natalie would make her complicit in whatever crime they had imagined. Then, the final insult. "Either you cooperate," the guard said, placing a hand on her arm, "or we'll have to detain you." A gasp came from a woman in the corner of the store. Someone whispered, "Is she really stealing?" Another person pulled out a phone. Natalie yanked her arm back. "Don't you dare touch me." The guard's stance widened, a challenge. "Are you resisting?" And that was it. The last thread of patience snapped. Natalie reached into her handbag, slow and deliberate, every movement precise. The guard's fingers twitched near his belt, clearly expecting her to pull something incriminating. What she pulled out, however, was far deadlier than a weapon. A sleek platinum business card, embossed with her name in bold, elegant letters, Natalie Cole, Chairwoman and CEO VC Holdings. She held it up between two fingers. "Google me." The silence that followed was almost deafening. The guard blinked, confusion flickering across his face. The sales associate swallowed hard, her cheeks turning crimson. Natalie tilted her head. "Go on, look me up." The sales associate fumbled for her phone, her manicured nails tapping hurriedly against the screen. Her face drained of color almost instantly. "Oh my God," she breathed. The guard was still frozen. Natalie stepped closer, voice calm but laced with steel. "Do you know how many luxury brands I own stock in? How many high-end properties I have investments in? You just tried to publicly humiliate a woman who could probably buy this entire company and have you both jobless before the end of the day." The weight of her words hit them like a freight train. The sales associate's mouth opened and closed, grasping for words. The guard shifted uncomfortably. Natalie exhaled, then tucked her card back into her bag. "Now," she said, leveling them both with a piercing stare, "I'd like to speak to your manager." The store manager arrived within minutes, a tall man in a navy suit, his face already lined with concern. His gaze flickered from Natalie to the security guard and the sales associate, both of whom looked distinctly uncomfortable. "What seems to be the issue here?" he asked, voice carefully neutral. Natalie took a slow breath, keeping her composure intact. "The issue," she said, voice cool but sharp, "is that your staff just accused me of shoplifting, humiliated me in front of other customers, and put their hands on me, without cause." The manager's eyes widened slightly. He turned to the guard. "Is this true?" The man shifted on his feet. "We had a description—" "A vague and racist description," Natalie interrupted. "One that apparently applied to me simply because I dared to step foot in this store." The manager's Adam's apple bobbed. He looked to the sales associate, who had gone completely pale. "Is this true?" he repeated, voice more clipped this time. The woman nodded weakly. I didn't mean to—" "Oh, you meant to," Natalie said. "You meant to assume that I didn't belong here, that I couldn't afford what I was looking at, that I was a threat." The room was deathly silent now, every customer and employee watching, waiting. The manager cleared his throat. "Ms. Cole, I sincerely apologize. This is absolutely unacceptable, and I will personally ensure this never happens again." He shot a glare at the guard and associate. "I'll be handling this matter immediately." Natalie arched a brow. "Handling it how?" The manager hesitated. "I want specifics," she pressed, "because I know how this usually goes. A slap on the wrist, a half-hearted apology, and then you all go about business as usual. She took a step closer, voice lowering to a lethal whisper. That's not going to happen today. The manager's hands twitched at his sides. Ms. Cole, I assure you, stop assuring me and take action. She pulled out her phone, scrolled for a second, then turned the screen to face him. It was a direct message to her 3.5 million followers, already typed out. Just got racially profiled in luxury boutique store. Security put hands on me. Staff humiliated me. Wonder what corporate would think. The manager paled. There's no need for that, Ms. Cole. Oh, there absolutely is, she countered. Unless you're ready to make some real changes. He nodded hurriedly. The security guard is terminated effective immediately. The sales associate will be placed under review and sent for sensitivity training. And I will personally be reaching out to corporate to discuss stronger policies against racial profiling. Natalie studied him for a long moment, then slowly put her phone away. That's a start, she said. She turned to leave, but not before locking eyes with the guard one last time. Next time, she told him, think before you act. And with that, she walked out, head held high. Outside, the crisp air hit Natalie's face, cooling the slow burn of anger still simmering in her chest. She wasn't shaken. No, she had endured worse in her climb to the top. But she was tired. Tired of these moments. Tired of having to remind the world of her worth when her existence alone should have been enough. Her driver, Malik, noticed the tension the moment she approached the sleek black Rolls-Royce idling at the curb. He stepped out, opening the door with his usual precision. Everything all right, Miss Cole? She exhaled. Not really. She slid into the back seat, sinking into the buttery leather. Malik didn't press her for details, but she caught his eyes in the rearview mirror, watchful, concerned. He'd been with her long enough to recognize when something was off. Take me to the office, she said. Malik nodded and pulled into traffic, the city blurring past as Natalie stared out the tinted window, replaying the last 20 minutes in her mind. Then her phone buzzed. It was a message from her assistant, Lauren. Lauren. Natalie, I just got a call from the Times. They heard about what happened at the boutique. They want to comment. Natalie's fingers hovered over the screen. The news had spread faster than she expected. She shouldn't have been surprised. Someone in that store had clearly recorded part of the encounter, and in an age where social media dictated headlines, a story like this was bound to explode. She typed back, Natalie. No comment yet. Let's see how the store responds first. She needed to control the narrative. The last thing she wanted was to be painted as some helpless victim. That wasn't her. If she spoke, it would be on her terms. Her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from an unknown number. Unknown Ms. Cole, this is David Langston, CEO of the boutique chain. I deeply regret what happened today. I'd like to schedule a private call to discuss how we can make this right. Natalie's lips pressed into a thin line. Now they wanted to talk, now that the world was watching. She stared at the message for a moment before responding. Natalie, I'll let you know if I'm interested. For now, I suggest you focus on fixing your policies before this happens to someone else. She locked her phone and closed her eyes, willing the tension in her shoulders to ease. But it wasn't that simple. This wasn't just about her. It never was. Malik's voice broke through her thoughts. We're here. Natalie opened her eyes as the Rolls-Royce slowed in front of the towering glass headquarters of VC Holdings. She stepped out, her heels clicking against the pavement with a purpose. If the world wanted to watch, then fine. She'd make sure they saw exactly who she was. Natalie strode through the sleek marble lobby of VC Holdings, her presence commanding as usual. The receptionist, a young woman with wide eyes, straightened immediately. Good afternoon, Miss Cole. Natalie nodded but didn't slow down. She stepped into the private elevator, pressing the button for the executive floor. As the doors slid shut, she took a slow breath, centering herself. By the time the elevator chimed and opened, she was composed in full CEO mode. Lauren, her assistant, was already waiting outside her office, tablet in hand, expression tense. "It's everywhere, Natalie. The video's gone viral." Natalie sighed, then gestured for her to follow inside. The office was a vision of modern power, floor-to-ceiling windows with a panoramic view of the city, minimalist furniture, and a massive desk that overlooked it all. She set her bag down and turned to Lauren. "How bad?" Lauren swiped on her tablet and held it up. The video was playing, a shaky but clear recording of the moment the security guard grabbed Natalie's arm, the exact second she pulled out her business card, and the stunned reactions that followed. And, of course, the caption. "Billionaire CEO Natalie Cole humiliated by store security. Wait until you see their faces when they find out who she is." Natalie exhaled sharply. "Damn," Lauren scrolled. "Comments are a war zone. Some people are outraged on your behalf. Others are calling it staged. Because, black women can't possibly be victims unless it fits their narrative." She rolled her eyes. "And then there's the usual trolls. But they're always there." Natalie leaned back against her desk, arms crossed. "What's corporate saying?" Lauren's expression darkened. "The boutique just released a statement. Standard PR fluff. We take this matter seriously. We do not tolerate discrimination. We are investigating." She glanced up. "It's damage control, nothing more." Natalie expected as much. "And Langston?" Lauren smirked. "Oh, he's panicking. That message he sent you? Turns out he's been calling everyone trying to reach you." Natalie let that sit for a moment, then picked up her phone, scrolling through the trending topics. Natalie Cole was everywhere. She had power here. The question was, how did she want to use it? Lauren studied her. "Are you going to do an interview?" Natalie tapped her fingers against the desk. She could go on TV, make a speech, put pressure on them publicly. She could let this moment ignite a bigger movement, force high-end brands to take a hard look at their practices. Or she could handle it in a way they'd never see coming. Natalie smiled, a slow, knowing curve of her lips. "Set up a meeting with Langston," she said. Lauren blinked. "You sure?" "Oh, I'm sure." Natalie's voice was like steel. "He wants to talk, let's talk, but on my terms." Because humiliation wasn't enough. She was about to make them regret ever underestimating her. The conference room at VC Holdings was nothing short of intimidating. Glass walls, a long mahogany table, and an uninterrupted skyline view of Manhattan. A setting designed to remind anyone sitting across from Natalie Cole exactly who they were dealing with. David Langston, CEO of the luxury boutique chain, sat stiffly across from her. His expensive suit did little to hide the discomfort in his posture. Next to him, a PR executive, equally anxious, kept glancing at her tablet as though hoping for an escape route. Natalie sat relaxed, fingers interlaced, unreadable. Lauren stood beside her, tablet in hand, ready to document every word. Langston cleared his throat. "Ms. Cole, let me start by saying how deeply sorry we are for what happened at our store. That experience does not reflect our company's values, and Natalie held up a hand, cutting him off. "Let's skip the rehearsed apology. We both know why you're here." Langston hesitated. "I assure you, our intention is to make this right." Natalie tilted her head slightly. "Make it right? Tell me, Mr. Langston, what exactly does that look like to you?" The PR executive jumped in. "We're prepared to offer a private apology, terminate the security guard, and ensure that all staff undergo racial sensitivity training." Natalie exhaled slowly. "That's nice," she said, voice deceptively light, "but not nearly enough." Langston frowned. "Miss Cole, She leaned forward. "I don't need an apology. I don't need a token firing. What I need is systemic change." Lauren slid a document across the table. Langston hesitated before picking it up. His brow furrowed as he read. "These," Natalie continued, "are the demands." "Not requests. Demands." Langston's eyes darted over the list. Mandatory racial bias, training for all employees, quarterly diversity audits, a public acknowledgement of the incident, and a multi-million-dollar donation to organizations that support economic empowerment for Black entrepreneurs. This, Langston started, his voice tight. This is quite a list. Natalie gave a small, knowing smile. It is. Langston sighed, rubbing his temple. You understand what you're asking? I understand exactly what I'm asking, Natalie said smoothly. And I also understand the alternative. You can refuse, and this story won't die. The longer it circulates, the worse it gets. For you. Langston looked at the PR executive, who was already furiously typing notes. After a long, tense silence, he exhaled sharply. We'll need time to review. Natalie stood. You have 24 hours. Langston blinked. That's not much time. It's all the time you're getting. She turned to leave, pausing only to add, Choose wisely, Mr. Langston. The world is watching. And with that, she walked out, knowing full well she had just put them in checkmate. The next 24 hours were a spectacle. News outlets dissected the meeting. Social media exploded with speculation, and hashtags like number Natalie Cole wins and number luxury racism exposed trended worldwide. The pressure was suffocating for Langston and his company. Every moment they stayed silent, the storm grew stronger. Then at precisely 3 p.m. the next day, an official statement was released. Langston and Company deeply regrets the recent incident involving Miss Natalie Cole. Effective immediately, we will implement mandatory racial bias training, conduct quarterly diversity audits, and contribute $10 million to organizations that support Black entrepreneurs. We are committed to ensuring that every customer, regardless of background, is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. Natalie read the statement from her penthouse office, her lips curving into a smirk. Lauren, who had been tracking every media response, let out a low whistle. Damn, you really made them pay up. Natalie leaned back in her chair, stretching her arms. They didn't have a choice. Lauren chuckled. You know what the best part is? Their stock went up. Natalie arched a brow. Oh? Investors love the corporate accountability angle. They think this makes Langston and Company look progressive. Lauren shook her head, amused. They really fumbled this whole thing, and you still made them look good. Natalie exhaled. That's the game, Lauren. I don't just want revenge, I want results. Lauren nodded, admiration clear in her eyes. So what now? Natalie smiled. Now? We move forward. 2 weeks later, Natalie arrived at the opening of a new business incubator for young Black entrepreneurs, funded entirely by the $10 million Langston had been forced to pledge. Cameras flashed as she cut the ribbon, her presence commanding. As she walked through the sleek workspace, shaking hands with the ambitious minds of the next generation, she felt something deeper than satisfaction. She felt purpose. One of the young entrepreneurs, a bright-eyed woman named Jasmine, approached her hesitantly. Ms. Cole, can I just say, what you did, it meant everything. You didn't just expose them. You changed something. Natalie smiled warmly. That's the goal, Jasmine. Always make them change the system, not just the headline. Jasmine nodded, her eyes filled with determination. One day, I want to be where you are. Natalie squeezed her shoulder. You will. And when you get there, make sure you do the same for the ones coming after you. As Natalie stepped outside, the city skyline stretched before her, vast and full of possibilities. She had walked into that boutique expecting to buy a watch. Instead, she had bought accountability, justice, and progress, and she wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. Power isn't just about money, it's about how you use it. Natalie didn't let anger dictate her response, she let strategy lead the way. She knew that the best revenge wasn't just proving them wrong, it was forcing them to change. This story is a reminder that discrimination thrives where there is silence. But when you stand your ground, demand accountability, and refuse to let ignorance go unchecked, you create a ripple effect. So the next time someone tries to belittle you, don't just fight back. Be smart, be strategic, and make sure they never forget the lesson you teach them. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notification to be the first to know when interesting and lesson-packed stories like this one drop.